Vera Giesing, Hugo Marome, Joe Schlesinger, Lady Milena Grenfell-Baines, Dave Lux. They all live very different lives and live in different parts of the world. However, they're all unified by one person in history. One person that, in spite of living the lavish lifestyle of a successful individual, was determined to make a difference on the eve of World War II. Overcoming many obstacles, Sir Nicholas Winton courageously took a stand by saving the lives of 669 Czechoslovakian children by sending them to safety in England. Nicholas George Winton was born on May 19, 1909, in London. Winton was educated at Stowe School in Buckinghamshire. He did not attend a university, but worked throughout Europe in finance before settling in England to work as a stockbroker for the London Stock Exchange in 1931. While Winton lived the life of a successful English stockbroker, Hitler had seized power of Germany and had ambitions to conquer the rest of Europe. French and English prime ministers, fearful of German supremacy, signed the Munich Agreement. This gave part of Czechoslovakia, called the Sudetenlands, to the Nazis. Hitler immediately seized the Sudetenlands on October 1, 1938. This prompted the leave of many political opponents to Prague, where refugee camps were set up. The camps were terrible and were an inhumane way of living. It was difficult for refugees to escape Czechoslovakia, as the world closed their borders on Nazi-threatened people. The only country that was letting in refugees was England. During Christmas of 1938, Winton was preparing to head to Switzerland on a skiing trip with his friend Martin Blake. However, Winton received a call from Blake, stating he was in Prague, helping Czechoslovakian refugees. Inspired by Blake, Winton also went to Prague. Winton first looked at the camps when he arrived and was horrified by how the children lived. Winton later commented that the situation was heartbreaking. Many of the refugees hadn't the price of a meal. Some of the mothers tried desperately to get money to buy food for themselves and their children. The parents desperately wanted at least to get their children to safety when they couldn't manage to get visas for the whole family. I began to realize what suffering there is when the army start to march. Things were being done to help get children to safety from Germany and Austria. There, large operations, later known as Kindertransports, got children from Nazi-occupied lands to England. However, there was no such thing in Czechoslovakia. Knowing this, Winton immediately pounced on the opportunity to take a stand and organize the escape of refugee children out of Prague by train. He was soon after approached by refugee families begging to take their children to England. Families met with him at his hotel and a local cafe, where he began creating a list of refugee children. The list was increasing day by day. He'd work until 2 in the morning to meet with new people, as said by Dr. David Silberkling, senior historian at Yad Vashem. Winton wrote letters to representatives of various countries apart from England in hope that they would admit refugee children. He even wrote straight to President Franklin Roosevelt, who was leading a refugee-hesitant America. However, he received the same response from each country: no. Discouraged, he continued to collect names, knowing that he would still be able to send children to England. However, as more people started meeting him, the nearby Gestapo, the German secret police, became suspicious. To ensure the continuation of the operation, Winton bribed them, using his own money. As Winton still worked as a stockbroker, he was faced with the obstacle of continuing to work in England. He requested an extension from his boss, who told him that what he was doing in Prague was not important. Though it was an inconvenience, associates at the BCRC continued the work. Besides, working in London provided him with the opportunity to closely interact with the minds at the Home Office. The Home Office was the department of British government pertaining to immigration and operated slowly, placing many restrictions on child immigration. One of these restrictions was that children entering England had to be accompanied by a parent or guardian. Winton was able to bend this rule by lying that he was the honorary secretary of the children's section of the BCRC. Though his position was affirmed on May 24th, 4 Czech Kindertransports had already been conducted, and he was forging documents that the Home Office couldn't deliver in time for the Kindertransports. Another large problem was the financial aspect of the Kindertransports. A £50 bond had to be paid for the admittance of each child into England, which is equivalent to $3,250 today. This was a hefty price to pay, but it was made possible with the help of organizational sponsors such as the B'nai B'rith Refugee Children's Movement, the YMCA, the Woodcraft Folk, and the Chief Rabbi's Religious Emergency Council. While in England, Winton's main task was finding foster families for the children. He sent letters to many different newspapers across the country, such as The Mirror. He showed them portraits of the children to encourage them to print articles about the crisis in Czechoslovakia. This is how he identified foster families who were reading the respective papers. These families lived across the country, from London to Newcastle. When a foster family notified Winton, he came to their house with placards of children, consisting of 6 to 8 portraits, along with their name, date of birth, and religious affiliation. When a foster family agreed on a child, Winton would mark the child as placed on the placard, and they were allowed admittance into England. Despite the many obstacles encountered, the first Czechoslovakian Kindertransport was conducted on March 14, 1939. It left Wilson Station in Prague and traveled through Germany to get to the Netherlands. Afterwards, children went on a ship to cross the North Sea into London. Then, they took a train to arrive at the final destination of Liverpool Street Station. Meanwhile, Nazi Germany continued to rise. The day after the first Czech Kindertransport, Hitler invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia.
Through the snow, the legions of occupation march into Czechoslovakia. This rapid stroke, which has outraged all freedom-loving nations of the world, is carried out with military exactitude. Infantry, too, stride confidently through the streets of the city, now reduced to the capital of a protectorate.
This created an urgent atmosphere to rescue the children immediately, but didn't do much in influencing the minds at the Home Office. As the summer of 1939 progressed, the Nazis continued growing larger. This inspired the final 4 Kindertransports, which carried a total of 508 children. The largest of them was conducted on July 1st, carrying 241 children. By September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. All borders in Europe were then closed. That same day, the 9th Kindertransport was scheduled to leave, carrying 250 children. It was canceled, and the children were never seen again. In all, 669 children were saved by Winton's efforts. After the Kindertransport ended, Winton served for his country in the war and later continued to do humanitarian work. His stand went unknown for 50 years until BBC's television program, That's Life, honored his actions in a 2-part segment. Winton wasn't obliged to act in Prague. His boss thought it was odd. It consumed a large part of his life for those 9 months, and he had no connection to the situation whatsoever. In spite of that, Winton still decided to take a stand and change the lives of 669 children. Since his story resurfaced, he has received many distinguished honors, including being knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 2003. Though he passed away on July 1st, 2015, at the age of 106, there's one huge takeaway from his life. It doesn't take a saint to make an impact. Whether it be saving the lives of over 669 children or volunteering, the same is true. One stand is all it may take to make an impact in the life of another.
Can I ask, is there anyone who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?